All right, well, we are in a series called My Best Life. And what we've been talking about is the voices that tend to speak to us whenever we say that we want to respond to what God has called us to do, right? And so the amazing thing is we know that there's those influential voices that are in society, but then we also have those influential voices that are inside of us, right? And a few weeks ago, we talked about how sometimes in life it's like having a tape recorder or a voice memo, and we have these voices recorded, and maybe something it's our mother said, maybe something that our uncle said, maybe something, an experience that we had in school, and every time we said, okay, I want to move forward and do what God's called me to do, those voices rise up and say, well, who are you to think that you're going to accomplish that? Like, where's the money going to come from? You need to slow down your role. Like, who's going to support you? Who's going to like you? Who's going to accept that? You know, who's going to join the team? And sometimes we get stuck there. And as a matter of fact, we've been looking at Moses and the experience that he had at the burning bush. And God was basically calling Moses to the best life that Moses could ever had. And of course, we all know that Moses responded to that call, which was to go to Egypt and to redeem the Israelites out of slavery. However, Moses didn't just say, okay, yes, Lord, thank you for the opportunity. I will go wherever you send me. Whatever you tell me to do, Lord, I'll do. Whatever you tell me to say, I will say. And Moses was like, no, I'm not a good speaker. You have the wrong person. How do I know that Pharaoh's going to listen? How do I know the Israelites going to listen to me? How did they know? Who should I say is sending me? And so Moses was basically giving God all these excuses and these rebuttals. And what I have found in life is that's not only true of Moses, but that's true of us. And I would say almost every single person who I have ever spoke to, rich, poor, black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Teenager, senior citizen, whenever God is tugging them, they always respond and say, well, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I have the money. I don't know if I have the time. I'm too young. I'm too old. Is we don't respond by saying yes. We respond, and really it's because there's these voices that we struggle with inwardly. And here's the reality, right? Let me just tell you this, that voices aren't always problems to solve, but tensions to manage, right? And so in other words, that voice of insecurity, we may be wrestling with that until we die. If it ain't one voice, it's another. And so here's what we got to realize, that if we're going to move forward, it's not about trying to resolve these voices or to get to a place where we never have to hear them again, but we have to be able to manage them so that we know that these are the voices that we know that are going to speak to me at any point in my purpose. Even after you say yes, you know, okay, well, these are the voices that speak to me. These are the voices that are on on my inward hard drive. So when these voices begin to speak, I know how to respond. I know I can identify them and to move forward regardless. Does that make sense? And so I invite you to go back throughout the series online or on the Bridge website, on the Bridge app, and you can catch up. But today we're doing part 5, and we are talking about the voice of inexperience. We're talking about the voice of inexperience, right? So after God, God told Moses, look, I will be with you. You don't have to worry. I'm going to give you favor. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to do miracles. So here is what Moses said in verse 10 of chapter 4. Then Moses said to the Lord, please the Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time past, nor since you have spoken to your servant. For I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And the Lord said to him, who have made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is not I the Lord? Now then go, and even I will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to say, right? So here's what Moses was telling the God. Okay, God, I understand you're going to be with me. You're going to do miracles through me. But now he begins begging and pleading, like, please, right? So he's running out of excuses. So now he starts to beg. I don't know if you've ever done that, right? You start running out of excuses. He said, please, come on, please, right? So now he's saying, please, Lord. He said, Lord, please. He said, look, God, I've never been eloquent, neither in the present nor in the past. Okay, God, if you need me to do speeches, like I'm not an eloquent speaker. And so what Moses was saying to him is, I'm not an experienced orator, right? So if you want me to get before these people and, give this, this theological presentation about the I am that I am, and God, the Lord, you have the wrong person. I don't have the experience. And the amazing thing was that Moses was not young. Just for those of us that are in our 40s, right? Moses was tending to his father's-in-law's sheep. He had run away from Egypt, so the time between when he left Egypt to now is 40 years. So he's not 40 years old. He was 40 years just like watching sheep, right? And just to give you an idea, so Moses is not some young buck. Like Moses have some age on him, but he is saying that I am inexperienced in this particular area. So here's what the voice of experience, always inexperience, says. The voice of inexperience says, I don't have enough experience to qualify me, right? So Moses is not saying I can't speak. If Moses couldn't speak, then he won't be able to respond. But what he is saying is, he's saying, look, I am slow of speech and I'm slow of the tongue. In other words, this is what Moses was saying. Moses, he said, God, okay, well, you got to understand, like, I'm the type of person, I can't just give a speech off the bat. Right? I'm slow with my words. I don't know if some of you are whenever you've been put in a hot seat, some of us are able to kind of like just say things off the top of the dome, and there's some of us that we need some time to sort of think, interact. As a matter of fact, these are kind of like two categories of rappers, right? So you have those rappers that they're good at freestyle, right? And so others, like, just right off the top of their mind, they can come up with rhymes. And then you have those type of rappers that they're more like writers. In other words, they need to put their pen to the paper and come up with rhymes before they rap. This is why sometimes you might know somebody who can rap, and they're like, oh, I didn't know you can rap, give me something. And they're like, nah, I can't. I can't freestyle. Well, I thought you know how to rap. No, but I'm not a freestyle rapper. In other words, I can't just freestyle this. I'm the type of person, now if I can go home, sit down and write some rhymes and then come back. As a matter of fact, when I was a rapper, I was a writer rapper. I've never been a freestyle rapper. So anytime anybody asks me to freestyle, I can't freestyle. Now I can go home and I can write some rhymes and come back. Don't get any ideas, Pastor Dwight, right? And so that's just the type of a rapper I was. As a matter of fact, one time I had a battle with a guy in high school and I won, but it was rhymes I wrote. Like, I need to go. So I'm not quick of the tongue, when it comes to rap. This is what Moses was saying. Moses was saying, God, you calling me to speak freestyle, and I'm more of a writer. Like, this is just not me. And here's the thing that I found out about with life, right? Then whenever we want an opportunity bad enough, we will show how our lack of experience still qualifies us. But when we don't want the opportunity, we will show how our lack of experience disqualifies us. I remember when I graduated from college, a lot of us, that was the recent college grads, we were frustrated because we would go on these interviews and they would say, well, you need 3 to 5 years of experience. Well, how am I going to have 3 to 5 years of experience in marketing, in tech, when I just daggone graduated from college? So here is what we used to do, and some of you still do it. So what you do is when you go on an interview, you show them that even though you lack the experience, your lack of experience still qualifies you. So you may say, well, okay, I may not have 3 years in sales. However, when I was a cashier at Giant, I learned how to handle money. When I was a barista, I learned what it meant to be an asset to a company. So even though I lack the experience, I will show you how my lack of experience still qualifies me. But when we don't want it, We will show how our lack of experience disqualifies us. Like, nah, I've only been to cashier. Like, nah, you got the wrong person. I only have barista experience. You have the wrong person. No, I only did like a little speech here and there, but you got the wrong dude. And it all boils down to whether or not we want to actually do it. And what you got to understand, at least at this point in his life, you got to understand the big story of all of this is Moses did not want to go. So it really had nothing to do with the inexperience. Moses just didn't want to go. That was just like the bottom line. And so understand, whenever we don't want to respond, or we're fearful, or we're scared, or we feel intimidated, we will use our inexperience as an excuse to not move forward. So whether that be our inexperience in life, and sometimes they can be inexperienced in a particular area. So this is not about age. So you may say something, well, I'm not experiencing social media. I just got an Instagram account yesterday. You have the wrong person. Or you may say, I've never spoken to students before. So maybe I have 50 years of experience in speaking, but I've never spoke to students. So you have the wrong person. You see where I'm going with this? Right? It's this, if I have experience in interior decorating, but I've never done it for a big corporation, so you have the wrong person. This is just a little something I do around my house for my friends. And what we tend to often do is we disqualify ourselves for positions and opportunity for which God have already qualified us. So if God felt that Moses wasn't qualified for the call, why would he even call him? Like, why would God even waste his time and have this conversation? And this is what we need to understand. Well, if God didn't want us to do it, then why is God nudging us? And we say to God, okay, well, God, I only have this amount of experience, as if God doesn't know. And what you got to understand is God knows exactly what you have and what you don't have. This is why when God responds, God says to Moses, well, who made man's mouth? So if the mouth is the problem, who made the mouth? And then he said, look, who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? In other words, this is what God is saying. God said, okay, well, Moses, you're saying that you can't speak, right? Well, who is the one that causes the mouth to speak or can't speak? Right? Who is the one that causes a person to hear or not being able to hear? And what God was telling Moses is like, look, I am sovereign over everything. I'm sovereign over the body. I'm sovereign over the mouths and the eyes and the ears and the entire universe. In other words, God was saying to Moses, that's not an excuse. And then look what he says to Moses. This is key. He says, okay, Moses, here's what I'll do. I will be with your mouth. This is huge. So Moses, not only am I with you, but I will be with the instrument that you need to use. So not only do I touch you, but I will touch your mouth that you would use to speak. And this is so huge, because when we don't have experience, what God can do is he's not only with us, but he's with the instruments that we need to use to get it done. So he anoints the mouth that you speak. He can anoint your eyes that you'll be able to see things other people can't see. That he will anoint your hands to be able to do things quicker and faster, and to do things with your hands that you didn't even know that you could do. As a matter of fact, some of us have moved forward and we still don't know, how did I get that done in such a short amount of time? How was I able to see that? How was I able to hear that? That is because God touches us. And then he says, and I will teach you what you are to say. So he said, okay, Moses, I'm going to train you. Okay? So not only am I going to touch your mouth, but I'm going to give you some training. So I'm not going to just put you out there and you just say stuff. No. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to give you the words. You're going to be straight. All right? So I'm going to touch you and teach you. I'm going to touch you and I'm going to teach you. I'm going to touch you and train you. God will develop you, but it's when you move forward. Does it make sense? So if I'm not moving forward, then why you need training? Why do you need teaching? No. I will teach you, and this is a faith walk, I will teach you along the way. And what is so ironic, later on, I'm jumping ahead of myself, he even said, look, what about Aaron? He can speak. And God said, okay, well, I'll give you Aaron to speak. And when you study the account of Moses, Moses is the one that's doing all the speaking. Isn't that crazy? So God said, okay, I'm going to send you Aaron. He can speak for you. But then I think Moses realized that at the end of the day, God is the one that called me to lead, and he's the one that put the words on my mouth, and he's the one that teaches me. So at the end of the day, I still need to speak and do what God's called me to do. Does that make sense? This is why you can't delegate a calling. You can delegate responsibilities, but you can't delegate your call. You can't take your call, put it in a proposal, send it to me, and expect me to do it. And then get mad at me and get mad at others when they're not passionate about what God put on your heart. And some of us are frustrated and say, why don't people get it? Why aren't their eyes open? Why don't they see what I see? Is because God showed it to you. And where there's the vision comes the responsibility. And where there's the passion, there's the call. So guess what? At the end of the day, we have to do it. And this is why some of us have, I don't know if you've ever been blown away by this. Sometimes the person with the most experience isn't necessarily the person that does the job the greatest. Because I'm telling you, it's about who God calls. So I'm going to give you right now I'm going to give you 5 things that override inexperience. I'm going to give you 5 things that override inexperience. So if you're here today and you say, well, I don't qualify because I don't have enough years in this, I don't have enough months in this, and I've never done this before, I've never done that before, and I'm just telling you, this is part of the call. There will always be some aspect to your calling in which you feel inexperienced. There's some aspect. Even with 30, 40 years in the game, I'm just telling you, there's going to be something. Well, I've never been overseas before. I've never been to Haiti before. Wow, I've never been to Rwanda before. I've never been there. I've never done that there. So I have 50 years of experience, but none there. So I don't want to go there because I'm too inexperienced to go there. Right? So these things override inexperience. Right? Y'all with me? Here's the first one. The first one is your ability. Somebody say ability. So in Jeremiah chapter 1. Which is so crazy, because in Jeremiah chapter 1, God calls Jeremiah to be a prophet, and Jeremiah gave God the same excuse that Moses gave him. So this is what God said to him. He said, now the word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. He said, I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then I said, hold up, Lord. Hold up. Behold, I do not know how to freestyle. Behold, I do not know how to give speeches. God, I don't know how to do it. Why? Because I'm a youth. I'm too young. God, it's a great call, but you chose a young person. Look what God said. God says, do not say I'm a youth. In other words, don't tell me you're inexperienced. Because everywhere I send you, you shall go. And all that I command you, you shall speak. Then he said, do not be afraid of them, for I'm with you to deliver you. In other words, he said, don't worry about the people. Don't get scared about them, declares the Lord. Then the Lord stretched out his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord says to me, behold, I have put my words in your mouth. So now God does the same thing to Jeremiah that he does to Moses. That God literally stretched out his hand and touched his mouth. God says, I've put the words on your mouth. I've given you what you want, what to speak. So the first thing is your ability. And let me tell you about what your ability is. Because you're saying, that, okay, well, I'm not the best speaker. And I'm not the best designer, right? And let me tell you about what override inexperience about your ability. And I want you to miss this. It's not about being the greatest. It's about the area that God has touched. It's not about being the best speaker. is using the mouth that the Lord has touched. You see, there's an area of your life in which the hand of God rests. There's maybe God's hand rests on your singing ability. Maybe the hand of God rests on your teaching ability. And here's what you got to be able to do. You got to be able to know the area that God has touched and to make sure you do that. Does that make sense? Let me just say, right? Because you may be saying to yourself, well, I'm not the best singer in the world. It's not about being the best singer in the world. It's whether or not God has touched your singing. And if God has touched your singing, his favor will rest upon your singing, and God will use your singing to do great things beyond your imagination. And some of us know right now of people that God is using, and he's not even the best singer, he's not even the best organizer, he's not even the best speaker, but yet God is using him. Well, he's using the area that God has touched. And what matters is whatever he's touched, whatever his hand is upon, you do that. So it doesn't matter whether or not you're the best photographer. If people love your photography and his hand is on your photography, then you do that. You see, very often we compare ourselves with other people. Well, I can't do it like them, and I can't sing like them, and I can't preach like them, and I can't organize like them. And it's not about whether or not you can do it like them. It's whether or not you're doing the thing that God has touched. And this is where some of us are frustrated, because some of us are in jobs and you're doing things that you know God has not touched. You know what I'm talking about? So here's what you got to be able to do, right? So I'm not saying you quit your job, but I'm telling you, you need to find time in your schedule to do the thing, the ministry that God has touched. And it may not be full-time right now. It may never be full-time. But I'm telling you, you will never find a sense of fulfillment until you do the thing, until you exercise the gift and the talent, the ability that he's placed in you, because his hand is upon that. Does that make sense? I'll give you an example. For a few years ago, I've been dibbling and dabbling on in landscaping, right? And here's all I'll say. I'm just cheap. I just tell myself, look, I am not paying people to put plants in the ground. And I'll tell you, that's been for better or for worse, right? So I've been able to see some shrubs, some shrubs grow. I was like, oh, okay, go Jumaine. I planted some mint, and the mint have been thriving. But I'm just saying, it's been a whole bunch of stuff that I planted, right? So I guess I've been kind of been able to hold my own, right? But here's the difference between my planting and my preaching. Now I could do a little something, get some plants in the ground, but the hand of the Lord is not on that, like it is on my preaching. So I'm not going to forsake my preaching to go do planting full time. So just because, the flowers start blooming this spring, it's like, oh, no. God said, no. My hand is not on your planting like it is on your preaching. So which one should I do? You preach. For some of you, it's the other way around. The hand of God is on your planting, and it's not on your preaching, and that's okay. And so many people forsake the area in which the hand of God is upon them, because they figure, okay, well, if the hand of God is upon him or her in that, then I'm going to do what they. No, you can't do what they do. You do whatever the hand of God is upon you, and this is why we have discovered your uniqueness. That's part of Next. And this is why we do gift assessment tests and, passion assessment and talent assessment. And it's all about getting you to better understand the areas, the abilities in your life that the hand of God is upon. Does that make sense? She said, look, I'm gonna touch your mouth. Here's the second one. The second one is your appointment. So then he says, see, I have appointed you this day over the nations and over the kingdom. So he said, look, not only have I given you ability, but I've appointed you to the nations and the kingdom. In other words, God is saying that this is the place where I'm sending you to go. So you got to understand, it's not only your ability, it's not only what he's placed in you, but where he has placed you. That's your appointment. That's your assignment. That's your platform. That's your place. There is something he's placed in you, and there's a place where he placed you. And let me just tell you something. You cannot do everything everywhere. Let me just help you. I'm telling you this. If you want God to use you, you need to be in position. That's your place. Because I'm telling you, some of us think, look, I can take my abilities anywhere and blow. No. That can't work everywhere. It works where he places you. And again, this is not an indictment on your gift and your talent. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. You need to be planted somewhere. You need to be where you are and appointed. Let me just tell you, for some of you, nobody hired you. You are appointed there. Nobody gave you any hand up, or nobody did you a favor. God appointed you there. And some of us have been frustrated because we've been wanting to leave our jobs forever. We've been wanting to move out of that neighborhood. We've been wanting to get out of the DMV. And no matter how much you try, you can't get. You say, man, I can take this gift. I can go to LA. I can go to Atlanta. I go to North Carolina. And no. Maybe for them, but not for you. Where has God appointed you? Where has he planted you? And you do what he's placed in you in the place he's placed you. God didn't send Jeremiah anyway. He said, I appointed you. I assigned you to the kingdoms and the nations. Y'all with me? Here's the third one. The third one is your authority. You got to be careful about this one. So look what he says. He said, I've appointed you to this day. Look what he says, over the nations and over the kingdoms, right? So when God describes Jeremiah's assignment, he's describing him almost like as a king or a ruler that's over these nations, that's over these kingdoms. And if you know Jeremiah was not a king or he's not a ruler. What God was showing him was the spiritual authority that he had given to Jeremiah. He said, look, Jeremiah, I want you to see yourself as being over the places where I've sent you. And we got to understand that wherever God has placed us, we need to have a sense of spiritual authority. Not arrogance, but realizing that God didn't just place us at that organization, he placed us over it spiritually. God did not just place us in the building, but he placed us over it spiritually. And here is how you use your spiritual authority, is that you realize, okay, this is not only the place where God has placed me, but this is where he's placed me over, so that I'm going to pray for the place where he's placed me. I'm going to fast for the place that he's placed me. I'm going to look for opportunities to minister, because I am God's man, I am God's woman for such a time as this, in this place where he's placed us. And so very often, we don't have a sense of authority. And so we just kind of just walk in like, I'm just so thankful to be here, whatever you guys, want me to do, I'll do, and I don't want to offend anybody, and, I don't want to, no. God has given you authority. You are the man of God, the woman of God that God has placed you. Not arrogance. You won't be arrogant. Some people are just straight up arrogance. You just walking on and listen to anybody. I just anoint these walls. In the name of Jesus, y'all can't find me. I'm anointed and appointed. Yeah, that's arrogance. Don't be that person. But you realize that, what, God has sent me here on assignment. And I'm not going to allow the devil to punk me. I'm not going to allow anyone to tell me I don't deserve to be here. No, God has sent me. You don't tell them this. You just say to yourself, God has sent me here. And I will pray. I will minister. I will be prepared for opportunities. You speak. When you walk into that Starbucks, you walk in there with some authority. When you walk into that building, you walk in there with some authority. But God has sent me here. He's placed me here on assignment, and it doesn't matter who doesn't want me here. It doesn't matter whether my coworker wants me to be here or not. It doesn't matter whether my parents or my family members, feel that I deserve this position or this place or not. It's not about them. It's about the God that has called me. This is why God told Israel, you are the head and not the tail. You are above and not beneath. He wanted them to start thinking leadership. He said, look. He said, you are not the he said, you are the lender, not the borrower. Take some authority. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you what authority looks like. Authority says, you know what? This is the way God has placed me, so nobody has to tell me to do my responsibilities. I will do my responsibilities in order to magnify and to give God glory. That's what authority looks like. We know that there's a coworker or somebody that's struggling in their life. He said, look, can I, you be my, is it okay if I pray with you? You know, is there anything I can be praying about? Is there anything you need help with? It's like, look, this is the way God has placed me. And if you don't do it, then who's going to do it? He said, when I realize that God has touched my ability, there's a special favor, and I realize that I'm appointed here, and I realize God sent me here, then I realize God has placed me here, and he's given me authority. And you speak, and you challenge, because he's giving you authority. Does that make sense? Yeah. Here's another one. Your assignment. This is huge. He said, look, I've appointed you this day over the nation, over the kingdoms, but not just to hang out, not just to waste people's time. Look what he says, but to pluck up and to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. So God says, here is the task that I want you to do. He said, look, I want you to pluck up, I want you to break down, I want you to destroy and to overthrow, and then I want you to build and to plant. And so God is using both agricultural as well as architectural terminology, and he's relating it to building a building, and he's also referring it to planting seeds and plants in the ground. And when God is saying, when it comes to your ministry, I want you to understand that there are some things that you need to pluck up, and there's some things that need to be planted. There's some things that need to be knocked down, and there's some things that need to be built. For some of us that have done gardening, before you put plants in the ground, you need to what? You need to pull up, you need to pluck up the weeds. And all across the city, we've seen it, that there are old buildings that are being knocked down, and then we see buildings that are being rebuilt, because sometimes you got to tear down before you rebuild. And let me tell you something. Don't miss this, man, right? Especially for those of us that are millennials, don't miss this one. Don't miss this one. This is huge. What God is sending Jeremiah, no, don't get arrogant, just listen to me. What God is sending Jeremiah to do is to upset entire systems. And when you look at Jeremiah's ministry, his ministry was so impactful. I'm talking about everybody, all of the rulers in the kingdom were mad at Jeremiah, and here is why. Because God was using Jeremiah through his ministry, through his words, to pluck up things and to rebuild things. And you know why sometimes God called the person with the least experience? Because very often the person with the least experience isn't married to the old system. That's what makes you valuable. Because you're not married to how things used to be. That's why God called Jeremiah. Because nobody else, why would I pluck up something that I want to be there? It doesn't matter whether or not, you can tell me all day it's a weed. I love the weed. I will water the weed. The weed is my plant. It doesn't matter whether the building needs knocking down. That's where I grew up. I love the building. Yeah, it's leaking and all that other stuff. Yeah, it's falling apart, but guess what? That's my building. Nobody knocking down my building. So God raised up Jeremiah. Because Jeremiah didn't care. That's what makes you valuable. Because you care more about God and you care more about the vision than the systems. Let me tell you something that Andy Stanley said, right? Some of those that aren't, you're Gen X or you're older. Here's what Andy Stanley said. Andy Stanley said, here's what you do. He said, you go in on Monday morning and you fire yourself. Walk out the door. Then you rehire yourself and you walk back in the office. And he said, this is what you do. Then you do what the new person is going to do, because here's what's going to happen. Somebody's going to do it anyway. It might as well be you. That's what makes you valuable. I forgot, Netflix offered, Blockbuster, Netflix made Blockbuster an offer. Blockbuster said, no, we're not buying y'all. We know where that goes, right? Because nobody want to buy, watch stuff from them. Like, no. DVDs are the way to go, buddy. Come on. VHS. Some of you like, V what? Yeah. That's your assignment. Remove and replace. And this is what's going to scare some of us, because some of us are going to have to remove stuff that people love and to replace it with things that people don't love. But guess what? Time will be on your side, and people will see that the things that God used you to remove needed to go, but nobody else had the courage to do it. I'm telling you, that's going to make you valuable. You can't put the price tag on that. And then another one is your approach. We'll close up with this. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. Look what Paul told Timothy. Paul told Timothy this. Timothy was a young pastor, and he was new in the ministry. And Paul told Timothy this. Let no one look down on your youthfulness. For those of us that grew up with the King James Version, said, let no man despise thy youth. Remember, you used to hear that when you were in Sunday school? Let no man despise thy youth. But rather, in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity, show yourself an example to those who believe. So here's what Paul was telling Timothy. Look, I know that you're young, but don't let anyone sleep on you because you're young. But rather, be an example in your purity, in your love, in your character. One of the things that will override inexperience is your approach. Is when you don't allow people to disregard you and disqualify you because of your age and your inexperience, but rather you be an example of purity, of love, and be the example that God has called you to be in that place. Because here is something that people can never argue with. You can't argue with character. You can't argue about character. And I'm telling you, people will tell you, and they've done it with me, people will look in your eyes and tell you, you are wise beyond your years. I don't understand how a person 25, 28 years can have so much wisdom. And you know how we got the wisdom? We got the wisdom based on our character. Because with all things equal, character gives you the edge. And people see it. People see that there's something different about how you carry yourself. And people can say all the time, this young one fresh out of, who she thinks she is, rolling up in here. You just started doing, who they think that, and you just allow your character and God's favor to carry you. Because if that's where God has placed you, that's where he's appointed you, you walk in your authority, and it doesn't matter your age, but your approach matters. There's a difference between inexperience and immaturity. There's a difference. So if you walk in there and say, hey, y'all don't like me because I just graduated from God. Y'all don't like me because I'm young. I don't care about none of y'all. All gonna hate it. No. That's immaturity. And people won't love us or accept us, not because we're young, but because we're immature. And don't blow an opportunity because of your character. And I'm telling you, don't miss this. I'm telling you because it happened with me. If you do what Paul says, doors will open up because people would say, you are wise beyond your years. And they don't know the full story. Or he says, thank you. I appreciate it. Don't miss this. This is golden. Write it down. Put it in your journal. Because we're going to have those times where people are going to say, you lack experience. But if you use the ability what God has touched and realize that God has appointed me here, and you realize your assignment is to pull up some things, to rebuild some things, and you have an approach, your character and your wisdom and your knowledge, woo, doors will fling right open for you. And your age and your lack of experience won't even matter. I mean, because at the end of the day, if I'm spending $5 million on a project, I want a person who will just get the job done. Everybody else got 30, 50 years of experience. I want to blow my money. But you show up. Whew, but the hand of God is put. I'm done. Father God, we give you glory, we give you honor, we give you praise. We thank you for who you are. Thank you for being a gracious and compassionate God. And Father God, the reality is all of us, God, are inexperienced in some area of our lives. Maybe some of us have been discouraged because of our age, our lack of experience. And we feel you nudging us and pushing us forward. You say, well, God, I'm not a good speaker. God, I don't have enough experience. God, my resume isn't thick enough. God, I just don't have it. God says, I've called you. And my hand is upon you. And I pray as we move forward in what God's called us to do, He will give us favor. They will open up doors that man won't be able to close. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Can we give God some praise, y'all? Can we give God some praise?